Laci Peterson was a picture of happiness. Young, beautiful, and about to become a mother for the first time, her life seemed like a dream. She had a loving husband, Scott, and they were excited to welcome their son, whom they had already named Connor.
I was 8 months pregnant and glowing with anticipation. We lived in the quiet town of Modesto, California, where life seemed peaceful and full of promise.
December 24, 2002, started like any other day for Laci Peterson. She woke up early, filled with the excitement and anticipation that Christmas Eve always brings. The house was already filled with the warm, inviting scent of holiday cooking, and Laci was busy making sure everything was perfect for the celebrations. She was at home preparing for Christmas, meticulously arranging the decorations and making sure every detail was just right. The Christmas tree stood tall and beautifully adorned, a testament to her love for the holiday season.
I told her I was going fishing that day. It was a routine I often followed, especially when I needed a break from the holiday hustle and bustle. It wasn't unusual, as I was an avid fisherman. The calmness of the water always brought me peace, and I thought it would be a good way to spend the day.
Later that afternoon, a neighbor found Laci's dog Mackenzie wandering alone, wearing his leash. This was strange. Mackenzie was a loyal companion and never strayed far from Laci's side. Laci would never leave her beloved dog unattended. The sight of Mackenzie alone raised immediate concerns among the neighbors. When Scott returned home that evening to an empty house, he called the police to report Laci missing. The house, once filled with holiday cheer, now felt eerily quiet and empty. The news of Laci's disappearance spread quickly through Modesto. The community, known for its close-knit nature, was shocked and deeply concerned. Volunteers joined the police in a massive search. Friends, family, and even strangers came together, united in their determination to find Laci. They scoured the area, looking for any sign of the missing woman. Every corner of the neighborhood, every park, and every wooded area was thoroughly searched. Days turned into weeks, but there was no trace of Laci. The hope that had initially fueled the search began to wane, replaced by a growing sense of dread. The community held on to hope, praying for her safe return. Candlelight vigils were held and people gathered to support each other during this difficult time. But as time passed, a dark cloud of suspicion began to grow. Whispers and rumors started to circulate, and people began to question the circumstances of Laci's disappearance. The circumstances surrounding Laci's disappearance were just too strange, too coincidental. The community, once united in hope, now found itself divided by doubt and suspicion. Everyone was asking the same question: where could Laci be? The search continued, but answers remained elusive, and the mystery deepened with each passing day. As the investigation into Laci's disappearance intensified, all eyes turned to her husband, Scott Peterson. The community was in shock, and the media frenzy only added to the pressure on the police to find answers. Scott's every move was scrutinized, and his behavior became a focal point for investigators. His behavior raised red flags for investigators. He seemed distant and detached, which was unusual for someone whose spouse was missing. Friends and family began to notice inconsistencies in his stories. He seemed strangely unemotional about his wife's disappearance. This lack of emotion was puzzling and concerning to those who knew him well. It was as if he was hiding something. His alibi of going fishing on the day Laci vanished was questioned. Investigators found it odd that he chose to go fishing alone on Christmas Eve, a day typically spent with family.
I went fishing, that's all. I don't know what happened to Laci. His calm demeanor while giving this statement only fueled more suspicion.
Further investigation revealed that Scott was leading a double life. He had secrets that he had kept hidden from everyone, including his closest friends and family. He had been having an affair with a woman named Amber Frey, which came as a shock to those who thought they knew him well. Amber came forward to police, revealing the details of their relationship. She provided crucial information that painted a different picture of Scott. Amber had no idea that Scott was married, let alone expecting a child. She was devastated by the revelation and cooperated fully with the authorities. The revelation of Scott's infidelity shocked the community and cast a dark shadow over him. People who once supported him began to question his innocence. Scott became the prime suspect in Laci's disappearance. The evidence against him was mounting and the police were closing in. The media scrutiny was intense. Reporters followed Scott's every move, and the public was eager for updates on the case. Every move he made was watched and analyzed. The public was divided. Some believed Scott was innocent, while others were convinced of his guilt. Some believed Scott was innocent, while others were convinced of his guilt. The debate raged on, with people taking sides based on the evidence presented. The pressure mounted as the investigation closed in on Scott, and the world waited with bated breath to see what would happen next. The case had captivated the nation, and everyone wanted to know the truth. Section 4. Tragic Discoveries, the Remains, and the Arrest. 4 months after Laci Peterson vanished, a grim discovery was made. The bodies of a woman and a full-term baby boy washed ashore in Richmond, California, just miles from where Scott Peterson claimed to have been fishing on Christmas Eve. DNA testing confirmed the worst fears. The bodies were those of Laci and her unborn son, Connor. The news sent shockwaves through the nation and devastated Laci's family. Scott Peterson, who had by this time moved to San Diego, was immediately arrested. He had dyed his hair blonde and was carrying a large amount of cash, his brother's passport, and camping equipment. It was clear he was trying to flee. The arrest brought a sense of relief to some, but it also solidified the heartbreaking truth. Laci was gone, and her own husband was suspected of taking her life, and that of their unborn child. Their hope of finding her alive was shattered. Section 5. Justice for Laci and Connor, the trial and conviction. The trial of Scott Peterson was a media spectacle, drawing intense public interest and scrutiny from the very beginning. Originally set to take place in Modesto, California, the trial was moved to Redwood City due to the overwhelming publicity and potential bias in the local community. Millions of people across the nation followed the trial on television, captivated by the unfolding drama and the high stakes involved.
Prosecutors argued that Scott killed Laci to escape his marriage and impending fatherhood for a life with his mistress, Amber Frey. They presented a mountain of evidence, including Scott's affair, his inconsistent statements to the police, and his suspicious behavior following Laci's disappearance.
The defense team, on the other hand, maintained Scott's innocence, suggesting that Laci had been kidnapped by strangers while walking the dog. However, they struggled to provide any concrete evidence to support this theory, leaving many questions unanswered. After a lengthy trial that lasted several months and days of intense deliberation, the jury finally reached a verdict. Scott Peterson was found guilty of first-degree murder for Laci's death and second-degree murder for the death of their unborn son, Connor. He was subsequently sentenced to death by lethal injection, a decision that sparked both relief and controversy among the public.
The verdict brought a sense of justice for Laci and Connor, but it did little to ease the pain of their loss for the family and friends who loved them dearly.
Section 6. Unanswered questions, lingering doubts and appeals. Despite Scott Peterson's conviction, some questions about the case remain unanswered. There were no eyewitnesses to the crime, and the murder weapon was never found. Scott maintains his innocence to this day. His death sentence was overturned in 2020 due to juror misconduct, but his conviction still stands. He remains in prison, awaiting a retrial to determine his sentence.
While the legal battle continues, the emotional toll on those closest to the tragedy is immeasurable. Laci's family and friends are left picking up the pieces, forever haunted by the loss of a vibrant young woman and her unborn child.
The case of Laci Peterson continues to fascinate and divide the public, a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly perfect lives. Section 7. A community in mourning, remembering Laci and Connor. The disappearance and murder of Laci Peterson left an indelible mark on the community of Modesto and beyond. It was a stark reminder that even in quiet towns, tragedy can strike without warning. Laci and Connor's memory lives on through the efforts of their loved ones.
Each year on the anniversary of Laci's disappearance, candlelight vigils are held to remember her and raise awareness for victims of domestic violence.
Laci's family continues to fight for justice and to keep her memory alive. They have established a foundation in her name to support other families of missing persons. Though the pain of their loss will never fully fade, the love and support of the community provide a measure of solace. Laci and Connor's story serves as a reminder to cherish loved ones, to be vigilant, and to never forget the victims of such senseless tragedies.